Right, that's starting up. Hi, I'm Anna-Lynn. I work at ESO, the European Southern Observatory, an intergovernmental organization dedicated at designing, building and operating telescopes. And today I'm going to talk to you about the big thing, the next extremely large thing, the extremely large telescope. And assuming I'm talking here to a room full of astronomy communicators, I imagine most of you will have heard about this. In case you haven't, let me introduce it to you and put this intimidatingly big screen to good use. Quite the introduction. A couple of words on the ELT. When it's ready we'll see first light 2028. That's what we're working towards at the moment. It will be the largest optical and infrared telescope in the world. We're building it in the Chilean Atacama Desert, where actually all our telescopes are based. It's massive. It has a primary mirror of a diameter of 39 meters, and that photo there shows you what that looks like in real life with some people standing next to it. And you can also see it is assembled of 798 individual segments, hexagonal segments, because you can't actually make a mirror that's quite that big. It's also pretty expensive. It's a 1.5 billion euro project. This means we're facing a lot of things here. There's a lot of stuff that has never been done before in terms of engineering and so on. But also it's something that is much bigger than any single country can do on their own. So the construction itself is a pan-European and Chilean endeavor and involves thousands of people, partner companies, organizations, institutes, and it requires a lot of unique and specific expertise in many, many fields of science, engineering, and beyond. And the case that I'm going to make today is, so does the communication campaign around the ELT construction. This is something that we have communicators working on that are themselves very, very interdisciplinary. They're videographers, they're motion designers, they're social media experts, they're writers, all sorts of people. But then we're working extremely closely with scientists, astronomers, with the engineers who are building this, with safety personnel, and so on. So this is quite the interdisciplinary endeavor. Right, timeline. This is a long project, 20 to 25 years. You see first concepts were there in 2004. Groundbreaking happened then in 2017. At the moment, 2024, we're looking at completing the dome and main structure of the telescope in Chile. And then, as I said, first light, currently aiming for 2028, first science then in 2029. This is a bit of a challenge in terms of communicating around the construction because you have to engage people over a long time. And for that, we have developed a specific multi-channel campaign that we're really constantly communicating about the ELT progress about on everything we've got available from social media, website, videos, events, and so on. And as I said, this requires quite a bit of interdisciplinary collaboration. And today's talk I've structured along 3 challenges that we encountered along the way in this campaign. So the first one is nothing to see here, because for the longest time, all we had to show was this. And that's already pretty good because it's flat and it has a road. But before that, there was a lot of sand for many, many years. So how do you bring across to people that something super exciting is happening in the desert, which for many of them is very far away, when you have nothing to show for it? So here are a couple of approaches that we took. I think one very obvious one is, well, you focus on the science that this will enable, right? It's going to be a game changer for astronomy, so what is this actually going to do for us? So it's about working with astronomers very closely on the big questions that this is going to answer and what is it going to enable us to do, and then translating that fairly complex science that we generally get by visualizing it or writing engaging texts about it and so on to bring it close to the people. That's one approach. The second one is you work with very visible spokespeople. So Didier Queloz, Nobel Prize laureate, is a big fan of the ELT. He will say so wherever he goes. If you have these kind of people telling your story on your behalf, that's definitely something that helps as well. And then there's the visual approach. And you may have seen some of those visualizations of the ELT. We have them animated, we have them as stills, but we have an incredibly talented team of visual artists, of motion designers who bring this to life in an incredibly real way. And this is not an easy task, and they're not doing that by themselves, because what they have to work with is this. These are the engineering models that exist. Hyper complex, full of individual parts, from screws to wires to everything. So something that is not really lending itself to communication. So there is where we're bringing together the engineers with the visual artists to really understand what is it that we're trying to show and bringing the ELT to life before it actually exists. And I'd like to talk about the next big thing that we're planning here. I'm going to start this. This is a virtual walkthrough the ELT before it even exists. So this interior that you're currently seeing just exists in engineering plans. And now we're making this available for people to explore. This is gaming software underneath it. It's work in progress, so we haven't released that yet. But the plan is also to have it similar to what we saw about the web earlier, as an app that people can download to then explore the ELT at their will. And we're also thinking about when we're kind of done with it to release this possibly open source so that the community, you guys, can play with it, can introduce interesting features and elements, maybe do some gamification and really make this a community resource. We're also working at the moment on really making that full VR, so that works with VR headsets already. But as I say, it is very much work in progress, but it's something that we're really excited about. Right, that was the challenge when there's nothing to see. Now we're in a phase where there's so much happening and it's really, really hard to capture. So this is just 3 years at Cerro Amazones in the Atacama Desert, where the ELT is growing. Not an easy place to go to document progress, because far away, not super hospitable. To be honest, there's also a big construction going on that you can't interfere with constantly. But obviously from the communication side of things, we're very interested in filming and taking pictures and talking to people there. So there's a challenge as to how to achieve that. At the same time, this is not only happening in Chile, it's also very much happening in Europe, everywhere at the same time, with lots of partners working on individual parts and instruments. So how do we go about being able to get all the material that we need to tell that story? Here again, 3 approaches. Obviously, we do regular documentation visits. From that point of view, we're based, some of my team is based in Munich, where the ESO headquarters is. Some of my team is based in Chile, so the ones in Chile are much better placed to do that and travel out to Amazonas a couple of times a year, together with a local Chilean video crew that documents there. Not always easy, but because construction is a very moving target. Like, things slip all the time. It's very hard to plan exactly on the day what you can see. So that requires a lot of communication with the people working on the construction side. Another approach is that we've installed webcams there, several, that give you several views of the construction site, from the outside, from the inside. People can follow this live. That is if we are online, because sometimes it feels like most of the time we're actually offline. Because operating webcams in such an environment isn't easy. There are power cuts, there's wind, there are all sorts of reasons why these things don't work all the time, and we're very far away, so quite hard to fix. So again, very important that we have good relationships with the people on the construction site. And then the last image is one that was actually taken by one of our, an engineer at Paraná Observatory, where the VLT, the Very Large Telescope, is based, taking a picture of the ELT construction against the full moon, in front of the full moon. And that is just to show that we're asking whoever wants to work with us on documenting progress to send us material and support us with that. That means a lot of relationship management and a lot of communication around this. Third challenge, telling the story. I said 20 to 25 years of a project is a very long time to keep people engaged. So you really need to do something that pulls them in and makes them want to engage. For that campaign, again, there are 3 elements that help us to do this. First one, not surprisingly, the science. This is what we're doing it for. So again, fascinating people with what this can achieve, the biggest scientific challenges that can be tackled with it, and also preparing people for the unexpected that can be found. So the big one is obviously the quest for life, finding life out there in the universe. Second element is the engineering. So something of the scale of the ELT has never been done before, and that means that a lot of the engineering requirements range from never attempted before on such a scale to simply never attempted before. And that's actually quite an exciting story to tell, but you need to make it tangible. You need to make these engineering challenges tangible to people, which is what we do by trying to putting it into context, into perspective that people can relate to. Here, for example, you see the sheer size of the ELT, 82 meters high next to the Colosseum. You can get a feeling for it, but also then bringing across that within that size, a 1 millimeter deviation in the engineering is something that is not acceptable anymore. So the precision that the engineers have to reach for this massive telescope to function the way it should is quite remarkable. And then the third element of the campaign is quite a fascinating one as well, and that is the people. The people behind the project, a cast of really dedicated people driven by the idea of creating something larger than themselves. And this is kind of a new approach that we're trying, where we're getting really quite close and personal with these people, bringing them up front and following them over the years towards first light. So this is kind of an interview-based approach where we're doing video interviews and really trying to bring out the emotions of these people. What motivates them? What are the challenges? Why are they in this? So that the audience can suffer with them, identify with them, celebrate with them the successes. Here's an example. This is Mr. ELT at ESO. This is Roberto Tamay. He's the program manager. Fascinating character. He calls himself positively crazy, as in crazy in the good way, which I think I can confirm. He's a keen sailor, and he's the skipper of the ELT, so he steers this project through troubled waters. He's the kind of person that gives you the feeling that everything is going to be all right no matter what. And the ELT will be Roberto's legacy. He'll retire after delivering this project, and we'll follow him until the end of his journey of almost 20 years. So it's very much a human story that we're telling with this as well. With this comes the challenge of communicating about crises and failures, which, believe me, exist in this project. So we've seen quite a lot. There was a pandemic that meant the construction site had to be closed for a year. A war, unfortunately, that means that parts are very hard to be delivered, right? The raw materials are hard to come by. We've seen bankruptcies of more than one of the providers we're working with, strikes of workers, thefts on the site, litigation and mitigation about contracts where maybe the delivery wasn't as expected. So there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes, which for us as communicators is super exciting, because this is what makes that whole thing a journey, an adventure, right? Are they going to pull this off? This is hard. So we are very, very interested in communicating this. The engineers not necessarily so, because they would obviously, they're interested in showing the final thing. They pulled it off. So there's a lot of negotiation going on about what can be and cannot be communicated. And we're aiming for transparency wherever that's possible, but also we as communicators have to be aware that there are things we simply can't talk about yet, so as not to jeopardize that project and its success. So there's a very close dialogue going on with the people working in the project as well. And one approach that has proven quite good for us in that way was to uncouple the reporting about those things a little bit in time. And for that, we have developed 3 different video formats. You can see them on our YouTube channel. I would have loved to show some, but the time is just so short today. The first one are monthly updates. They're pretty matter of fact, 1 minute long, construction milestones, what does it look like on the construction site, so that people can stay up to date. The second one is more a stories-based approach. We haven't released one yet, it's going to come soon. And this is more emotional, more people-focused, like mini documentaries, really seeing the people behind the work. And because we have those ELT updates, we can actually release those things whenever the time is right. So whenever what they talked about in terms of challenges and difficulties is resolved or is at a stage where they're comfortable talking about it, which gives us a little bit more leeway to also cover those topics that are hard to speak about. And then we're aiming for, by 2029, a feature-length documentary, which hopefully then means everything's there and working and we can tell the whole story with all its ups and downs. So to wrap up, because I framed this as interdisciplinary collaboration, here are a couple of lessons that we learned. And I apologize because these read like general relationship advice, which is maybe not surprising because we're all humans. But what is important in this interdisciplinary collaboration is it's a marathon, not a sprint. You look after your relationships, they're everything. So sometimes you're losing the battle, you don't communicate about something or in a different way so that you have kind of long-term relationship with the people that are behind the story. Trust is absolutely key. We took a long time to establish a relationship of trust with the engineers and the scientists, that they know, how we communicate. You unite people around a sense of shared endeavor and purpose. So the project is really what everyone's heart beats for, and this motivates everyone to work together. We're coming from different worlds. Communicators are different from engineers, and approaching each other with a curiosity and assuming good intentions is always important. We do a great deal of showing the merit of communication. Why are we even talking about this? And supporting the team with challenges where communication can come in handy, for example, recruitment or raising funding. This is often where they see the benefit of what we're doing. And then finally, it's about often being patient and kind and optimistic really helps as well. So before I close, talking about interdisciplinary comms teams, this is the best one I know. These are my people in Munich and in Chile, both sides of the Atlantic. They have done all this work. So I want to acknowledge them. They're fantastic. And any applause that this is going to get here goes to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing this story.